Mistakes. It's a human thing. That sounds too familiar, right? Well, mistakes are done by humans. But if you keep repeating them again and again, people tend to shy away from you. And that's exactly what happened with Hero MotoCorp. As the way they kept repeating their mistakes again and again by launching their premium products, which honestly weren't that great, people literally forgot that a product like the Charisma was brought down in India by Hero itself. But now finally Hero seems to have got their lessons, as they have recently launched this specific bike. And as they say, you only need one good shot to make it big in life. So, hey guys, what's up? I'm Sriniket. You're watching my YouTube channel Sri Productions, and today let's check out the all new Hero Xtreme 160R. Let's get started. The 160R is simply the most radical looking bike in the 160cc segment. The all-LED headlamp with no cowling and a sleek shape will definitely remind you of a Transformers character. The tank looks a bit roundy in pics and video. In person though, the tank extensions are much more defined. I specifically like the single unbroken panel which extends from the bottom of the seat till the top of the tank without any visible bolts to hold it on. The tail section with that smoked tail light and the LED indicators mounted on an upswept tail section looks a bit polarizing, but it gives this bike a very distinct look. Short and chubby exhaust along with the fat 130 section rubber makes the entire bike's design cohesive, something that youngsters will definitely like. The overall fit and finish of the cycle parts and the body panels is decent and on par with the competition. Although one can't help but notice the welds on the chassis near the passenger foot pegs, the tiny instrument cluster which moves around quite a bit and isn't easily visible in a bright daylight due to its reflective surface, and also due to the microscopic fonts used by Hero this time, and the fact that it misses out on a gear position indicator is a bummer for many. Other than that, the overall design of the handlebar, switch gear and the top triple tree looks too commuterish. One thing to note is that it does get a hazard light switch, something that no bike in its segment offers. Overall, the 160R looks really good in person. A lot of guys will mistake it for a scaled down version of the Xtreme 200R, but it's simply not the case this time, as the 160R is pretty much a newly developed motorcycle. It gets its own bespoke diamond frame which has helped it to be one of the lightest in its segment, weighing in at 139 kg for the dual disc version, which is really commendable for a bike in a 160cc category. It gets an all new engine which is newly developed and isn't based on any other hero out there, and especially not the Honda Hornet. It produces 15.3 PS of peak power and 14 Nm of peak torque, exactly in the middle of the segment. It gets chunky 43mm upside down forks up front and a 10-step preload adjustable monoshock at the rear with a cast aluminum swing arm and a carbon fiber wheel at the rear. Just like the Xtreme 1R concept. I'm just kidding. It gets the 37mm telescopic forks up front and a 7-step preload adjustable monoshock at the rear with a box section swing arm. Nothing new here. Braking duties are carried out by a 276mm disc up front and a 220mm disc at the rear with single channel ABS as standard. Now, the alloys might look exactly the same as the 200R, but Hero states that they are substantially lighter. Tire sizes are 110 by 80 17 up front and a 130 by 70 17 at the rear. The tank capacity is 12 liters, similar to that of its rivals. Judging by the specifications, the setup of this bike, Hero has set up this bike closer to its Japanese rather than its Indian rivals. So, how does that translate out in the real world? There's only one way to find out. There's one thing that us humans like, and that's getting surprises. It's a human thing. Well, one such pleasant surprise which I got was riding the new Champ from Hero. And yes, I admit that I really didn't expect having so much fun on a Hero motorcycle. First of all, it's the engine. Some say simplicity always works, and so is the case with the engine on the 160R. For starters, it gets air cooling rather than oil cooling, and 2 rather than 4 valves. A crazy simple setup for a brand new bike launched in 2020. And that just works. Hero knows, as these bikes are mostly used for commuting and very occasionally for touring, it's better to have an engine which feels stocky in the bottom end and mid-range rather than a crazy top end with a lackluster bottom end. That's where this bike excels. The bottom end is good, but the major chunk of torque lies in the mid-range. So, keep it in the mid-range and you can have a lot of fun in the city. It even managed to chug along in 5th gear, doing as low as 35 kmph, where the engine chugs along at 3000 rpm. But then, being such a bottom end and mid-range focused engine means it has compromised quite a bit in the top end as the progress slows down considerably past 85 km an hour. Some tests found out that this bike takes a whopping 23 seconds to do 0 to 100 km an hour. But then, one of the two highlights of this bike is the refinement on the engine. It's simply one of the smoothest single-cylinder bikes I've ridden till date. The Apache 164V's smoothness is on another level, but the Extreme follows really close. The engine is so refined in fact that I won't mind riding it at 100 km an hour all day long. But then, just like its lackluster performance in the top end, revving it out does mean a decent amount of vibes creep in on the foot pegs, especially past the 100 kph mark. But it's only limited to the foot pegs. That shows us how refined this newly developed engine really is. And the second highlight of this bike is the superb suspension setup. Hero has simply nailed it this time as it absorbs the initial bump very effectively and not much transfers to the rider, while the rebound is super progressive, which means that it settles into the bumps and eases out with such a beauty that very little transmits to the rider. That does not mean it's unsettling or bouncy. Due to a short wheelbase of just 1327mm and a curb weight of just under 140 kg, the flickability of this bike is among the best. The front end feels light and quick to turn. Despite it being a softly sprung setup, it has a great feel too. The rear shock keeps it stable and absorbs mid-corner bumps with a plushness without being too wallowy. The suspension then has been set up perfectly, keeping the great Indian pothole in mind. The brakes are sharp with a good bite and decent stopping power. The sitting position is relaxed with a 790mm seat height, which is approachable for guys even with heights as low as 5'6" to 5'7". Foot pegs are not as aggressively rear set as a 164V, and the handlebar too isn't aggressively set by any means. In all, the riding position is relaxed, but it's regarding your butt. The seat cushioning is really soft, and after a while, your rear end will feel digging in and getting uncomfortable, an issue that can be solved by adding aftermarket seat accessories. The pillion seat is really small and will get uncomfortable for short as well as long rides. And the fact that it gets integrated grab rails, anchor points for luggage can be an issue. In all, Hero has tried to provide a package which is comfortable yet fun to ride. But it's only when you push it hard does it start showing its soft-edged nature. So if you are an enthusiast and ride in a very hardcore manner, pushing it to the limits will show its shortcomings, something very few of us will discover. For the hardcore riders among us then, the Apache or the Gixxer are simply better, but only at the limit. For the rest of us, it's a sweet little commuter which can entertain a rider very effectively. By the riding experience, we can clearly tell that Hero has played it very safe this time by offering a bike which is not very aggressive, very hardcore to ride, and thus appealing to a much wider range of audience. The question then is, who should buy this bike over its Indian and Japanese rivals? Well, this bike is for those who want a very comfortable bike, a bike with a very pliant, a very comfortable suspension setup, and a very refined engine. It's exactly for those and not specifically for us enthusiasts. So that's pretty much it from my side. Special thanks to Raj Hero for providing me the Extreme 160R for review. They are one of the biggest Hero dealerships in the Marathwada region and one of the biggest in Aurangabad city itself. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right away as we are very close to hitting 5,000 subscribers on this channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Down.